Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Has your financial advisor recently flown the coop? Stay tuned to find out.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the WorryFree Retirement, with your host, five-time author and fiduciary, the money missionary himself, Tony Walker.
Welcome to the WorryFree Retirement. I am your host for the next 28 minutes or so, the author and creator of the WorryFree Retirement, Tony Walker, and with us on this beautiful morning in Louisville, Kentucky. We're filming this show on February 27th, 2018. As of this date, I'm actually a brand new granddad. This is my first experience, folks. Cool thing here. Here's a shot of our little Scout is her name. This is my daughter and my favorite son-in-law, Trey, who works in the business. This is their first child, our first grandchild. And so we're really, really tickled with that. But yeah, here we are and back to work. Trey's taking that day off. I don't know how this works. I'm doing a TV show and seeing people, but that's all right. But we're filming this show with America's favorite financial sidekick, Aaron Orander. Good to have you along with us. Here's a question. Have you recently been blindsided by a letter or a random phone call that your financial advisor or stockbroker has flown the coop, as we like to say? Well, if so, the brokerage company that still has your money is probably working desperately to try to hold on to it. And worse yet, you're probably getting letters and maybe even phone calls from your current advisor who has flown the coop, and that advisor is trying to get you to move the money from your current custodian. I know this gets confusing, folks. Current custodian, because they want to make money on the money. So here we have this scenario that I'm seeing playing out more and more. People are coming to me, and they're confused by this whole thing. They're saying, Tony, maybe I started working with, we'll use the name Jim. Jim was a friend at church, great guy, financial advisor, wanted to move money from 401k or something over, and I gladly did that. I liked Jim. Jim was doing a good job, and all of a sudden I found out Jim's no longer with the firm. And Jim's calling me, the firm's calling me. And then I find out, we'll see this in a minute, we'll find out that maybe I don't even have enough money anymore for either one of them, and they're charging me all these fees. So there you sit. And if this hasn't happened, hang on, because it's probably going to in the near future. More and more of these large brokerage firms are going through a lot of changes. And this is why we're always encouraging people, especially if you're a saver. Again, that's the investment world, folks. If you're a saver personality, you need to seriously consider working with someone like us, an independent fiduciary, so you don't get caught in the middle of all these games that go on when a lot of times these brokers jump ship and move on. Now, again, there's nothing illegal about it. It's not that there's something wrong with your advisor. The point is, here's the point. The point is you're caught in the middle, and in many cases, what I'm hearing from people is they're totally confused and they don't know what to do. It's really a terrible predicament, in my view, for the financial world to put somebody in this particular dilemma. I call it the flying the coop syndrome. And again, nobody wants to get stuck in the middle of all this stuff that's going on. So how do you respond? So when this does happen, you get the letter, you get the phone call, Jim has left, or the firm's trying to hang on to your money. What are you supposed to do? Well, you're in luck, because today, regardless of whether you're stuck in the middle of the fly the coop syndrome, or you're worried that your Wall Street firm is maybe not spending as much time or interest in you because maybe, just maybe, you don't have enough money for them to care about. If you feel like that's the case, this show is going to be a great episode as we talk about the idea of how financial institutions work and why they tend to play these games sometimes with your money. Here's my thoughts on this. I've got a theory about this whole thing because people might say, well, Tony, is this kind of a new phenomenon? I think it is. And I think where all of this started is when Wall Street made the decision to leave the world of commissions, okay? See, I work on commissions and fees. I think commissions are actually a good thing. They're transparent. You know what's going on. You won't have all these problems with minimum fee sizes. You'll see this in a minute. But what happened was years ago, my view, Wall Street got away from commissions because they felt like, hey, if we can just get people's money and hang on to it and charge fees, actually, we'll make more money, the income will be more predictable, and we'll have a better feel for what's going on with our accounts. And I don't think this is really the right way to handle things, but that's the way it's been. In fact, a good friend and mentor of mine when I used to study under him, Bob Castellone, used to explain it this way. He said, Tony, the financial world's a lot like Dracula. You know, Dracula needed blood, right? Without it, he would die. Well, the financial world's no different. Their blood is your money. Without your money, other people's money, or OPM, they're going to die. So when they're trying to strategize, the financial world is trying to figure out how they can get money on a regular and systematic basis. And this new fee platform that they created some years ago is doing just that. So what happens is people are constantly scrambling over your money because they want those recurring fees coming in rather than having to work and bust their tail for commissions, which commissions are hard. It's a one-time deal and it's over with. Let me give you an example. Years ago, used to be people would be glad to work with people with $15,000, $20,000, $30,000. Now you can't even get anybody to answer the phone usually unless you have $250,000. A lot of people don't have that kind of money. So it used to be you'd call up a broker and you'd say, hey, I got $20,000. They'd say, great. And you'd say, I want to put it in a growth mutual fund. They'd say, fine. So maybe the growth mutual fund has a 5% commission. You give them the $20,000. They make $1,000. It's been worth their while to do all this. They service the account and everybody's happy. But you got to understand, when they went to the fee platform, and then let's say they get an average of 1% or 1.5%, well, they can't afford to work on a $20,000 account, so you don't get any more service. Years ago, most advisors worked this way. They were on commission, which in some ways I think was probably a good thing. I like a mixture. Again, I like commissions and the opportunity for fees if the fees are reasonable. Now it's different, though. Again, you have fees that are consuming so many accounts. This happens all the time. People come in, they want me to look at their statements. They say, how come this thing's not growing a lot, Tony? And I look at it and we do a fee analysis and I say, well, one reason is they're taking out 2%. You know, by the time the advisor takes their cut, by the time the mutual funds and everybody takes their cut, you're having to earn 2% just to get back to break even. So let's fast forward. We see people advertise on TV. They'll even say, and you know, if you got $500,000, give us a call. We'll handle your money. Well, that's great. No wonder they will. If they're charging 1.5% on $500,000, folks, that's $7,500 per year they're making on your account, whether you make money or not. Keep that in mind. And add insult to injury, if the market tanks, you start running out of money in retirement. So these accounts, most of them, when they say they can do a lot of this planning they talk about, if they're a Wall Streeter, they can't guarantee it unless they're using annuities. And we know many of them don't use annuities, so they can't guarantee anything. So it's a real dilemma I'm seeing with savers, and particularly, we're going to talk about this in a minute, if you've got a 401k or an IRA and you're wanting to safeguard that money for retirement. So I don't know what most people do. The average person I see doesn't have $500,000 anyway. So who are you going to talk to if you don't have $250,000 or $500,000? Again, we work with all sizes of accounts. We have several $1 million account sizes sometimes come in here, but the average size account we have is anywhere from $100,000 to about $500,000. We do not have minimum account sizes. This is really important. And then we also have the brand new Schwab platform. Aaron put the disclaimer up on this at the bottom of the screen if you don't mind, but basically we're independent. We can use Charles Schwab. Our fee to manage money with this platform is a whopping 0.6%. We're going to see this when we break for a commercial here and come back. It's an amazing process for our saver clients, and we have the opportunity to save you a lot of money in fees. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to take a quick break. When I come back, I'm going to show you the difference between two different accounts. The first account is we're going to go back to an example we had, and it's actually a Tony in the Trenches, with somebody paying 1.5% in fees versus the 0.6% with our Schwab portfolio with us at the helm. You stay tuned. I'm going to get the whiteboard out. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement. I'll be right back. Ever wonder how advisors make money? Hi, I'm registered investment advisor Tony Walker, and for years, advisors representing Wall Street have convinced you that fees are better than paying commissions. Well, no wonder. Look at this example of an advisor charging 1.5% per year on your money. Wow, they've made a lot of money whether you did or not. If you feel like everybody's making more money on your money than you are, schedule an appointment with me today. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
And now it's time for Tony in the Trenches.
Welcome to the Worry-Free Retirement. We're back with our Tony in the Trenches segment, one of my favorite parts of the show. I've had people say before, hey, Tony, where do you get all these topics for the show anyway? You do a show every week, don't you? And I said, yep, every week. How many episodes have we done now, Aaron, of the Worry-Free Retirement? Yeah, Aaron says 203 episodes. That's a lot of TV. But we have our in-house studio. Incidentally, we're getting close to our new building on Shelbyville Road. Should be in a couple of months. But we'll have a huge studio, new backdrop. We're really looking forward to that. We want to improve the show as best we can with all the accoutrements of the backdrop and graphics. So we're working hard there and hopefully make the show not only entertaining, but best of all, more educational. We keep working to improve that. I hope you appreciate that. So here's a TNT, a Tony in the Trenches, actual question that allowed me to think of the topic for this show. And it comes from Dave out of Louisville, who writes, Tony, I'm 40 years of age trying to save for retirement. I recently got a letter out of the blue from my stockbroker wanting me to move my $80,000 account from his former firm, which incidentally this person didn't even know he had left, and he says that it's only $80,000, since it's only $80,000, I love the only, that the fee for him to work with me is going to be 1.5% per year, which Dave goes on to say seems kind of high. Dave says, I do plan on adding around $10,000 a year until retirement. What are your thoughts? Thanks, Dave. Well, again, Dave, I think what we're going to find here when I show you this calculation is be very careful. When what Dave didn't go on to say in that question, because I did meet with Dave later, is what he said really was awkward was the whole idea of then the original firm, who still has his money incidentally, they call him. And he's like, hey, I didn't even know the broker had left. This was my buddy that left. Do I go over here? And they're saying, well, no, stay here. And he's trying to figure out the service, and he's realizing he doesn't even know who's going to be assigned to work with him, and he's got this 1-800 number. It's just a disaster. And I think the part that I tried to tell Dave subtly, I said, Dave, the problem is, partner, you don't have bukus of money. To them, $80,000 is chump change, obviously, and that's why I think the Worry-Free Retirement resonates with people. We don't have minimum account sizes. We are looking to help savers worry less about money, and we're honored to talk to you about you and your money, regardless of the amount of money you have to invest. So as we got to thinking about this, I got with Heather and I said, Heather, I met with Dave and we looked at the information. I said, let's do some calculations on this for the audience. I just want you to see the effect that fees have on your money. So in this example, we're going to compare, simply compare, if Dave were to stay with his broker and using the same interest rate assumptions, which nobody can guarantee that in terms of what we're talking about. These are managed accounts. These are not annuities, by the way, so we're out of the world of guarantees. I'm just trying to expose the fees and the cost of these fees. So scenario number one, Dave is going to stay with his broker for the next 27 years. He's going to put $10,000 in, et cetera, et cetera. Scenario number two is we're simply going to compare that to our fee, okay? So if you're experiencing this flying the coop syndrome, or maybe you're getting a little worried that maybe Wall Street's not giving you enough one-on-one attention, pay close attention to this. This is some good stuff. Okay, so kind of let's recap it. We're going to refer to Dave as Joe Lunchbox. He's age 40, and again, Dave, remember, already had $80,000 with this broker, so he's looking to possibly transfer it into our program. He says he's going to put $10,000 a year into the plan each and every year. That's his goal. We're going to assume, I really don't like to assume 5% on a managed account, but you know, he's younger. He said, I want to be aggressive with this. So just to be conservative, we're assuming 5%. Now again, either way, it's 5%. If he stays with his broker, we have to assume 5% with us. Will we make more than the broker or less? We don't know. That's the problem with a managed account. But you still, moving forward, when you're comparing fees, you have to use the same interest rates, all right? I've had people come into me and they'll say, well, Tony, my broker says I can get 12% now. I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. You're going to predict 12%? There we go again, you know, potentially over-promising and under-delivering. You always want to assume very conservative, and just for the record, 5% really is not that conservative, but we'll stay with it for this example. Okay, so let's take a look at this. As you look at the fees, so this is, we won't show you all of the spreadsheet, but basically what we're doing here, their fees, remember, or 1.5% per year. So every year this account is going to grow, grow, grow. The problem is, as the account grows, so does Wall Street's pocketbook, because as you grow, they grow. In other words, the more money you make, the more money they take in the way of fees. And the problem with all these fees, let me reiterate this, the problem with all these fees is that's great on paper, and this happened to me in the 90s. Boy, when the 90s were the go-go 90s, I was managing money, people could care less what I charged. I charged about 1.25% back then because the market did so well. Nobody's paying attention to fees when you're making 15 to 20%. But you go losing money like it did in 2000 to 2002, these fees really matter because it just chews away at the returns when you have fees on top of losses. So fees really do matter both in good markets and in bad markets. So what we did, we simply went out to age 65, okay, and we said based on all these numbers with the fees, this person, Joe Lunchbox, would have approximately $655,000 after all the fees were deducted. Now I look at that and I say, well, you know what, 27 years later, that ain't bad. That's still a lot of money, and I would agree with that. So if you just look at that on the surface, you say, pretty good, not bad. Keep in mind, we're not even dealing with taxes yet. We have taxes we have to deal with. I don't want to bear too much on you right now, but so that's an issue, is taxes. But right now we're just focusing on the fees. So again, you would have $655,000. Now again, with our new platform we initiated this past spring, last year of 2017 with Charles Schwab. Charles Schwab is who I used as a custodian in the 90s. We reintroduced this plan. As of the date of this recording, we've got about 40 million under management. That's pretty good in just less than a year, and it's going very well. And one of the reasons it's going well is it's 0.6% a year, or 0.6% a year. Now, I don't know if you know much about math, but just comparing those two, if you say, well, that does look like a big difference, it's a huge difference, and I'm going to show you why. Because remember, every year that fee has to be taken out, whether it's with the current broker you're with or with us. This is our managed platform I'm talking about again. But what would be the difference? So you might say, well, Tony, that's all well and good, but at age 67, if I have 655 here, assuming the same situation here, how much would I have with you guys? Well, what if I told you that the difference would, Aaron's got kids, pay for a future wedding, you know, $20,000, $30,000. What if I told you the difference on top of that in 27 years might even buy you a new car on top of that? That'd be pretty good, another $20,000 or $30,000. What if I told you you wanted to get a down payment on a second home one time and one day in retirement? That's another $40,000 or $50,000. Well, that's the amount of money we're talking about, because if we had 0.6%, instead of having $655,000 one day, you would have approximately $777,000. Folks, that's over $120,000, let me put this, in your pocket, okay? Not in Wall Street's. And the thing about this, you look at that, what's telling about this, that means they're making $120,000. Now, first of all, I'm not opposed to that. And you say, is that good or bad? I don't know. The question is, what are you getting for that service? So think about this. Given the same circumstances, if you could guarantee, the fees are the guarantees we're talking about, that you could save $120,000 over that same 27-year period of time, what could you do with that money? That's really the question. That's why we're saying, I'd rather have that money in my pocket. So why don't you do this? If you're sitting there right now and you're saying, Tony, I've got a 401k I need to roll over. I don't know what the fees are going to be on that. Tony, I've got somebody where I just got this fly the coop letter from my broker. I don't know what the heck's going on. I've got money sitting in the bank. I'm tired of earning 0.5%. I may want to consider putting some of my money in something like this. Obviously, we still offer a ton of the fixed indexed annuities. We've written literally thousands of those. We understand those products. Why don't you take action, all right? Let's set up a time to meet. All you got to do is go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. You're going to click on that Let's Get Started button. It's so simple to do, and there's absolutely no cost or obligation for you and I to have a one-on-one appointment, again, in either our Bowling Green or Louisville offices. So again, it's Let's Get Started, TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Click on that button and we'll get started soon. Well, we've been talking a lot about over-promising, under-delivering, people trying to predict the future. That's really what we're talking about. Isn't that, when you think about the stock market, I met a gentleman once and I said, what do you think the stock market is? And he said, to me, it's just buying somebody's opinion. That's really all you're doing, because nobody can predict the future.
So what we want to caution you at, and the Bible is cautioning against this too, certainly we should seek counsel from others. I don't have all the answers, nobody does. We should seek counsels. In fact, the Bible says you might even want counsel of one or two people, not just one. But we also have to understand that the Bible warns us from taking on and latching on to people or things who think they know a lot about the future, but really have no clue what's going to happen. These are some great verses of Scripture. I'll cover those in detail, but first, as you know, I got to get me a cup of coffee. I'll be right back.
I got to tell you, Tony, I don't know how in the world you do everything that you do. I want to know what your secret is.
Well, I think it's a combination of faith and passion. You know, my faith in the Lord to help me and to guide me has been immense. And I've had to learn to be a little more obedient to the things that I'm good at. I've found in life, Marge, sometimes people try to do too many things. We've become very focused in our practice. I am a retirement specialist. Most of the things I do are geared towards retirement planning. You mentioned that number of fixed annuities, doing that many annuities. We've gotten very, very good at annuities. We understand these products. We know how to put them into a process, and I think that gives people a lot of confidence. The second thing is passion. I'm very passionate about what I do. I enjoy getting up in the morning. I look forward to meeting people. You and I had this interview scheduled for several months. I've been excited about it. And, I thought, well, I'm kind of tired today, but as soon as we got ready to do this, I thought, no, this is important. It's important to get information out to people. It's important to educate people. And after you've done something for almost 30 years, you feel compelled to share with them what you've learned about this business. So I think it's a combination of faith and passion, and that's what allows me to do what I do.
All right, Tony, I just heard you mention about the Worry-Free Retirement, and I've heard that many times from you. You've written books about it, you speak about it when I hear you on television, but I really don't know much about what your process is. Could you tell me what the Worry-Free Retirement is about?
Yeah, and the whole concept of worry, that's a biblical reference for me. I worry too. I'm not one of these people that sits around and says I never worry. I do, but it's not a good thing to worry. Worry, if you have faith in God, you really shouldn't be worried about anything, technically, although we still worry. So that's part of it too. I think it's hard to enjoy life when you're worried. Now, I can't help people with all their worries, but I know a lot about money. I can help them in many cases with their financial worries. So what I decided to do was build this process around the assumption that people are worried. And for people that are worried about money, my job is to help them. So in this process, what I've done is I've created 5 steps. And these 5 steps, Marge, can be used for anything. But the first thing we do in the Worry-Free Retirement process is we start by clarifying your vision. And then we go to an assessment, and we're going to talk about those in more detail. Then we go to what I call a commitment, committing to that vision and that assessment to do better. Then we get to the implementation, and then we get to monitor your progress. So this whole concept is built around worry, but it's also built around this premise that we can help you with your worries so that you can use and enjoy the money, which to me, that's what it's all about.
All right, welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. And as of the date of this recording, February 27th, 2018, we are certainly in some interesting times, not only as it relates to money, folks, but also the notion that man is able to kind of figure out so much about one another and seems to have everything else figured out as to what to do and when to do it. When you think about the financial world, that's really what most of the financial world is doing. In many cases, I think they're over-promising and sometimes under-delivering. They seem to always act like they know what's going to happen in the future, and that's just darn right impossible. Take our instance. The financial world thoroughly enjoyed this latest stock market run. That's great, because on paper, Americans who had invested in the stock market as of the last several years made a ton of money on paper. Remember, that money's not worth anything until it's converted to cash and used. It is on paper. And number 2, because the accounts of these Americans is so high as a result of the last few years of the rising stock market, the advisors are making a ton of money. Remember the 1.5% of all this money. Think about it. They're making money year in and year out, and they have no skin in the game. If the markets tumble, they still get paid. So this is really not what we would call good for the consumer. So the key to this madness is you think that your advisor really knows what's going on in the stock market when admittedly they don't know how to predict the future any better than you do. It's impossible, yet the Bible deals with this very topic. Let's turn over, Aaron, to Ecclesiastes 8:7. And basically it says the following: if no one knows what will happen, who can tell him when it will happen? Powerful words. And then it goes on over, let's go over to 10:14, Aaron. Really interesting. Ecclesiastes 10:14 says kind of the same thing. It adds, who can tell him what will come after him? So not only will you not be able to tell what's going to happen and when it'll happen, you're not even going to be able to tell what will come after you and I. You see, God is reminding us that no matter how much we think we can predict the future, no matter how much we think we know about the stock market or future interest rates or whether to buy a bunch of gold or whatever, man has no way of knowing what will happen in the future. So why in the world would we all sit around and assume that man knows when something's going to happen? You really think that know-it-alls on TV and the radio and internet, you really think they can predict the future? They cannot. And that's why we must build into our process guarantees, because we can't predict the future. We have to have something that we can count on, and that's why we use a lot of the products we use. To not have guarantees, in my view, is not prudent for savers and simply wishful thinking. So let me close great verses of Scripture with Ecclesiastes again. Aaron, let's go to 9:11. Very dramatic when it says, gets very dramatic here, and let's make this poignant. At the end it says, I again saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, and the battle is not to the warriors, and neither is bread to the wise, nor wealth to the discerning, nor favor to men of ability. Look what it says, for time and chance overtake them all. So again, folks, time is something we can't control, and neither is chance. So what do we do? So you tell Tony, okay, so what does all this mean? What it means is you have to know thyself. You can't always be running and chasing rabbits here just because somebody says something might happen. If you're a saver, first of all, you have to build some guarantees in your planning. That's one of the things we do. The second thing you do, you have to find an independent advisor who hopefully is going to try to be there for the long term and work in your best interest. And we believe we're the best fit for that. So if you're a saver, you feel like the financial world's more concerned about your money than they are you, give us an opportunity. Let's get started by meeting. All you got to do is go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, click on that Let's Get Started button. We can meet in either the Bowling Green or Louisville, Kentucky office. If you're retired, nearing retirement, maybe you have money languishing in the bank, received an inheritance, it doesn't matter. If you need help with your money, I would love the opportunity to meet with you. Again, it's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Click on that Let's Get Started button. Well, in the meantime, it's been great being with you. Between now and next week, if all else fails, don't worry. Be worry-free. You've been watching the WorryFree Retirement. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for watching the Worry-Free Retirement with Tony Walker. If you need a safe and simple game plan for your retirement, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and schedule a free, no-obligation meeting with Tony.